Hey everyone, NightAdder here. I've crunched the numbers and solved the mysteries to tell you everything you need to know about muskets. So let's get started. Alright, so welcome to the video. So first off, I want to give a shout out to the Duelist and Super Kid Week. And I hope I pronounced that right. Your critiques and suggestions in my crossbow video allowed me, I think, to really improve this video. And I want to thank you for that. So moving on, in this video, I've decided to put all the data up front. That way you don't have to watch the video of the shot timings if you don't want to, and that information is located after the outro. Here are some timestamps detailing the key points in the presentation. That way if you just want one piece of information, you can skip to it. And I'd like to point out the section on accuracy is pure theory, since I do not have the base numbers. However, it's based on watching my musket shoot since I've had them, and I've had them a while. But using that data I'm going to present, as well as the accuracy, I'm going to make some suggestions for gameplay style and build. And so what methodology am I using now? So I changed the methodology from firing 3 shots and timing it, and then calculating damage that way, to measuring how long it takes for the unit to run drive rounds and calculating damage from that. I did that because while I could get an accurate assessment of the elite Tertiary and Kriegsrat, the arquebusiers completely fell flat. I wound up having to throw 10 to 15 hours of workout and start over. I used a lot of gold and unit training plans trying to get my unit tree completely bare of extra honor, because to me a max unit is when I put as much as I can into the unit tree as well. So it's taken me quite a while to do this, because I basically threw everything out and started over. And the video you're looking at is one of the reasons. There's simply no way to measure this. So I had to go back to the drawing board, and I basically borrowed Super Kidowix's idea, and actually it turned out for the best, because I got really accurate data that way. So here's the doctrines I'm going to use. As you can see, using a rare piercing damage doctrine to give me another 75 piercing damage. I'm taking the increased shooting accuracy for 20%. I use the increased rate of fire for 16%, and I use the breakthrough damage doctrine. And I got the health doctrine in there, so I use an extra 310 health. So for raw stats that we can actually get, I've taken it all together and I've put it on this little template here. And you can see that I've put the maxed out units in the center with the basic units out on the side. So you can see that the basic arquebusiers has a 35% ammo advantage over KG, and their piercing penetration is 19% better, and their piercing damage is about 5% better than the max one. Okay, now the max one has 40% more health, 20% more piercing defense, and 30% more slashing defense, and 10% more blunt defense than the arquebusier. But over the basic Kriegsrat unit, it's only got 7.8% more health, 7.4% more armor pen, and 14% damage. So you can see that this now gives you what I'm going to call a first round out unit alpha damage. The first time your guys fire, you notice they all fire at once. So this gives you a good idea of how much damage is coming out the door. So the Silver Era arquebusiers, they'll in the first round they'll do 73,000 damage, assuming they hit, which as was pointed out to me in the crossbow video, like, they probably won't, but if they did hit, that's the damage they would do. And they would do it at 3,478 piercing armor penetration, which means that they can pretty much pen and damage anything, right? And so the Kriegsrat Elite aren't close to that, nor is the basic, but the basic Silver Era and the basics and the advanced Silver Era both do that great alpha damage, but that doesn't translate to DPS, because if you look the unit DPS, the very basic on the far right arquebusier is only shooting 3.6 rounds per second, right? It's only doing 9,000 unit DPS. When you look at the basic Kriegsrat, it's doing 6.95 rounds a second. And that's a 22% increase over the max silver arrow unit, which is doing 5.38 rounds per second. Then you look at the elite Kriegsgrat, and it's doing 33,000 unit damage per second, and it fires at 10.73 rounds a second, and it is a 35.23 fire rate over its base unit. So basically, it's kind of makes sense. Basic Arquebuser, Max Arquebuser, basic Kriegsgrat, Max Kriegsgrat. It just kind of goes up on a line. And this is where I found my first inconsistency, because if you look at your Max Arquebuser versus your basic, it's a 31% increase in rate of fire, but it should be more than that. Same with Elite Kriegsgrat over basic Kriegsgrat. It's 35%, but it should be more than that. How much more? Well, I know how much it should be because I have the numbers. The Max Arquebuser should be about 40%, but it's not. It's 31%. It's losing 7%. And the Kriegsgrat should be 43%, but it's not. It's at 35%, and it's losing 8.23%. So this made me pound my head against the wall for a minute. Like, where is this coming from? Where is my calculation wrong? And then I noticed something in the unit tree of the Kriegsgrat. So if you look in the unit tree, it says 15% of base value. So to me, that means it's not stacking. But it's the only place I can find that says this. So theoretically, maybe the other things do stack, but this one doesn't. But then why would it affect the Arquebusers, and it actually affects a Tertio a little bit? So I think that the reality is that there is diminishing returns, right? Because I can't see that big of an 8% drop in when I'm timing the entire shot, the entire length of shot. So there's diminishing returns, which begs the question, how long is that length of shot? Like, how long does it take to shoot all your rounds off? So as you can see here, the basic Arbalist, it takes over 3 minutes. That's a long time. You're only shooting 3 rounds, 3 rounds a second kind of thing, and it's taking you 190 seconds to shoot all your shot. The Max Arbalist, a little bit faster, 130. Kriegsgrat, Elite, 41.93 seconds, 42 seconds, and you've blown through all your rounds. And then, of course, the basics is 64 seconds, and you've blown through all your rounds. Twice as fast as even the most maximum Arbalist. So this information is kind of useful, especially if you realize now that you're probably, as a Kriegsgrat, tied to a supply depot, right? You're tied to that supply spot, because if you do get to rock and roll, you're going to rock and roll for 41 seconds and you're done. You're empty. So let's take a look at the Tertio. How does that affect it? Okay, so with the Tertio, like the Kriegsgrat and Arquebus, I'm going to start out by showing you what doctrines I use. So the first doctrine I use, of course, is the accuracy doctrine, plus 20%. Then the 16% rate of fire. And then I have Epic Arquebus Doctrine 3, which I got through the War Scholar. And that's just all these defenses bonuses. So I thought, what the hell, I'll throw it on there. And then, of course, I got the Piercing Damage Doctrine for 75 more damage. And, of course, the Breakthrough Doctrine. Right, so I need that. So for the unit tree, I went up the top line. That this will allow me to have the chance to break the blocking status, as well as give me more rate of fire. So the next thing I want to look at is of course, how the Tertio compares to the Kriegsgrat. So you can see the Elite Tertio Arquebusers has 25% bonus to health, plus 50% ammo, plus 24% piercing, armor, penetration, but it has 9% less damage. It does have 43% piercing defense, 30% slashing defense, but it also is lacking in the blunt defense. It has minus 20 compared to the actual Kriegsgrat. When you look at the basic Tertio, you're going to see that it only has a 19% bonus in health, 13% to damage, to piercing, armor, penetration, sorry, and it has minus 23% damage. So it actually has less piercing armor penetration and less damage than the Elite Kriegsrat. It's got plus 23% to piercing defense, and it has plus 16% to slashing defense. And with blunt defense, it's minus 40%. So then we're going to get into because of the damage, the absolute alpha damage here. We're going to look at the first round out unit alpha damage. And you're going to see that the Kriegsrat and the Tertio are pretty much on par in all across the whole board. Like, I mean, everything is roughly the same. The only difference being, of course, is that the Tertio Elite have excellent piercing armor penetration, right? So this brings us into the unit damage per second. And as you can see, the Tertio and the Kriegsrat, when they're elite, are pretty much on par. The benefit that the Kriegsrat doesn't get, that the Tertio do get, is piercing armor penetration. The piercing armor penetration of the Tertio is, of course, as I've stated, much better. So you can see for the rate of fire that it follows a similar pattern as everything else. The basic units of both are on the low end, and the elite units of both are on the high end. And the elite Tertio is 41% faster than the basic Tertio. The elite Kriegsrat is 35% faster than the basic Kriegsrat. It's also 34% faster than the basic Tertio. So everything just seems to follow, you know. So I guess there's no real surprises in that regard. So the next thing to look at is, where does the Tertio get its bonuses from, and what's the loss? Well, it gets 30% of its rate of fire bonus from its veterancy, 16% from that doctrine, and that should equal 46%. But what you actually get is 41.8%, which indicates a loss of 4.2%. Now that could be a stacking loss, or it could be an actual error on my part. 4% is getting pretty low. Now the big elephant in the room. Accuracy. As was pointed out to me, what good is having 30,000 DPS if you can't hit the broadside of a barn? And it's a very difficult question to answer, because there is no base number that I can go from. I do have bonuses. I have those numbers, as you can see here. And other than telling you that Elite Kriegsrat gets the highest extra bonuses to accuracy, and Tertio Elite the least, there's nothing really we can go on, because we don't know from where they're all three are starting from. Are they all starting from the same place, or, as I suspect, you know, Tertio are inherently more accurate than Kriegsrat, and Kriegsrat are more accurate than the Arquebusiers. Of course, with the way the numbers are between the Tertio and the Kriegsrat, it's possible that the Tertio start out just a little bit more accurate, but not that much. But regardless, accuracy is a problem. How do we deal with it, other than to say that muskets have a hard time hitting anything, right? So I want you to watch this video and just take a quick peek at it for one quick second. Okay, so this is a basic Tertio unit. So it fires roughly 6.97 rounds every second. So there goes your alpha round any second now. Meow, there it goes. There goes your alpha round. And now, for every second that they're firing, they're shooting 6 shots. Now, as the archers start to fall, more and more shots are being used to kill the one guy. And this is a direct reflection of their accuracy. Okay, so here is the bare bones theory on musket accuracy. The diagram is not to scale, but it's how I think it works. So think of the probability of a hit as a cone that leaves the firing rifle and travels out toward the target. As it reaches the target, there's a circle of probability around the target that the round could hit. This is the hitbox. Now the hitbox can be an actual box, or it can physically be the avatar. We don't know. Regardless, the hitbox will be more narrow than wide. That means that the probability of a miss is greater in the horizontal plane than the vertical, since the target is essentially a rectangle. As the target gets farther away, his relative size shrinks, whereas the diameter of the end of the cone increases. Eventually it gets to a point where it will intersect with the earth and sky, forever removing the round from the possibility of a hit on the perimeter of the circle within the cone. The closer the target, the more likely it will fill the entire cone, until a miss on a stationary target becomes impossible. It seems that for muskets, a stationary target must be within 15 meters to make a miss almost impossible. And at 60 meters, a miss will be almost certain. So what I think happens is that the avatar aims at his target, and the cone centers on the target. The circle is then evenly spaced around him. If he is close enough, the entire cone will be on the target, far enough away, and the cone will intersect with ground and sky. The bot pulls the trigger, and a random number generator decides where on the circle the round hits. A line is drawn from the shooter to the target, and if it passes through a bot, a hit is scored. This makes it very possible for Avatar A to shoot at target A, miss completely, but hit target B. Essentially, the Avatar aimed at Peter but hit Paul. This is more likely the closer you are. So on a 30-meter shot into a crowded battle, the individual bot may not have hit the target he aimed at, but because of the size of the cone and the multiplicity of targets, someone was hit, if not the one the bot was aiming at. To me, this means you should think of a unit of muskets as one large shotgun. The closer you are, the better. So how do I think the bonuses to accuracy works? I just think it means that it's going to shrink the cone by that percentage. So the circle at the very end of the cone, if it's an 80% accuracy, it should shrink by 80%. But this is where you wonder if maybe there are diminishing returns, because that's a pretty big shrink, right? But that's basically how I think it works. So let's get into some pros and cons. And here's a con. You notice they just did their alpha fire, and now they've broken into their 6 rounds a second. And you notice that there's very few hits actually being scored. And that's not even a good unit. It's like the old Demone swordsman. And here's another one. Again, a really crappy shield unit coming straight at them, and they're not doing much damage. So essentially this is also a balancing mechanism, because a crossbow unit would cream these guys. But yeah, they can't even, there's obviously no point in shooting at a shield unit. So there's one big con. So let's look at some more pros and cons. Well, for the Tertiary and Kriegsgrat, you've got high penetration, high damage potential, high rate of fire, high resistances except for blunt, decent health, some melee ability. Now if you add arquebusiers, their pros in here, you'll find that you get a high alpha potential, high pen, and a medium rate of fire. That's pretty much it. From the con side, you're going to find that all muskets suffer from poor accuracy. They all have poor formations, they cannot penetrate shields, they have slow movement, they have difficulty shooting up or down from a wall, and they have poor blunt resistances. In addition, arquebusiers suffer from poor health, they have poor resistances across the board, not just blunt. They have abysmal accuracy, as compared to Tertio and Kriegsgrat, who have poor accuracy. And they have no melee ability whatsoever. Sure, they can draw a sword, but that's about it. Or a little tiny dagger, or whatever they've got, but they can't kill much with it. And their poor health makes them susceptible even to archer fire at an unheard of rate. Namcans are your worst enemy in that regard. So now that we're coming to the end of it, I do want to talk about a build. My Tertio and Kriegsgrat build will probably remain unchanged, but my Demone Arquebus build is going to change a little. And instead of having a damage doctrine, I'm going to pull that out and I'm going to put in a piercing resistance doctrine. Right? And now if you look at my veterancy tree, you'll notice that I don't go up all the way one way. And I've actually done this for quite a while. And the reason I go up half the way up the top tree and a quarter of the way up the bottom tree is to get the 45% veterancy for accuracy. And then when you add the 10% on the unit tree and the 20% doctrine, that's that 75% bonus to accuracy. Now, as we just went through accuracy, does that mean that the circle is going to be shrunk by 75%? I don't know. We really don't have any way to check if the if there's diminishing returns with accuracy. I suspect there are, but I don't know. So that's how I would play that. And then how would I actually play the whole muskets into the into the match? Well, Kriegsrat with their high rate of fire, you're pretty much tied to a supply point. Try and stay near one, because if you do get into a big fight, and you're shooting nonstop, you got 41 seconds and you're out, right? Tertiary are better. I think they're at 75 seconds and they're out, something like that. And arquebuses, of course, well, you can shoot them all day because they've got like 2 minutes of ammo on the max. But what I do know is that even though the Tertio and the Kriegsrat have a little bit better armor resistances everywhere, the arquebuses don't. So how I tend to play them is I don't pull them right away. Like I either wait till I'm inside the walls if I'm attacking, or until they're inside the walls if I'm defending. They don't shoot down from walls very well. They don't shoot up at walls very well. They have poor formations, so that means you can't maneuver them in the city very well. So I tend to try and sit on a corner and play a corner. So if I have units in front of me, then obviously I'll go in behind the unit, because the closer to the unit you are, the more likely that any archers shooting are going to hit the unit that's in front of you than you. And if you're on a straight plane, an enemy archer player has to get up on something to really tell his unit to aim at you, which is why you need to avoid the areas near the walls of a city, right? So you don't want to be near the walls if you can help it, and you don't want to be, stuck in a narrow alley where a cavalry unit can charge you down. Now, granted, the Tertio have a chance and the Kriegsrat have a chance to stop a cavalry charge if you see them enough. And that's the one pro I probably didn't put in there, is that if you see cavalry lining up on you down the street and you have no place to go, you don't have to wait till they're the closest thing to you. You can tell them to shoot at them, right? And then if you're a longsword hero or a musket hero, you can use your abilities to help break up that charge, and then the Tertio and the Kriegsrat would shoot them right down. Now, the arquebuser can't do that. So in that regard, you kind of want to set up on a crossroads, because if the cavalry lines up, you just step into the other road and they charge by and you shoot them as they go by, So you're very delicate. You take a lot of damage from Namcans and arrow fire, and you don't have a good melee ability, right? Now, granted, compared to other ranged units, Tertio and Kriegsrat do have good melee abilities, and as a Tertio, you can actually survive quite well in a short melee fight, if that's what it takes. But, you're not going to outfight like a shield maiden unit. You're not going to do it. You're not going to outfight a paladin unit. You could possibly outfight like a silver or a green unit, but not Condis, right? But you can definitely take on a green unit as a Tertio. But you shouldn't be, right? You shouldn't be putting yourself into position where you're going to be fighting them. That just isn't very wise. So that's really my take on muskets. Thanks for listening. If you got this far, good on you. Thanks for watching. I do appreciate it. Please hit the like and subscribe button. It helps share it. Tell your friends, and by all means, if you see a mistake, please mention it. I could have made a few extras here. I've been doing this for quite a few hours, and I redid the video 2 or 3 times. I don't know how many times I've redone the script. So at the moment, I'm just getting really tired, and it's been a long day. But that being said, I hope you got some good information out of this. And if you want to see all the calculations complete with the timings, that's after the outro. But literally, you're going to sit there and watch arquebusers shoot for 3 minutes. That's how it is. But anyway, thanks for coming on this journey with me, and I hope to see you next time. Cheers, and have a good one.